They've suffered a great loss. They have endured a great deal of stress and anxiety over the loss of a husband, a father, a son, and a brother. And they have done so with a great deal of class and dignity. And I think we as a community should be grateful to them. We owe them a debt of gratitude for the way they have conducted themselves. So, folks, I appreciate you. There have been members, and there are members of the community who knew Mr. Perkins, were friends with him, and they have endured in this loss as well. Likewise, our community as a whole has suffered as this case has made its way through the investigative process. And I just want everyone to know that everybody who has been impacted by this case, which honestly includes our entire community, has been in my prayers continually. I also want to commend the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency for the job that they did in investigating this case. I specifically want to commend Special Agent Jamie King. Jamie, typically these type cases would take anywhere from 6 to 9 months to conduct a thorough investigation. Jamie did a thorough investigation and was able to do it in just less than 3 months. So he's to be commended for his hard work. It's my understanding that this case was not a priority for Agent King. It was the only case that he worked on since it was assigned to him to investigate. Now, again, before I get into the results of the grand jury, I want to tell you a little bit about the grand jury that heard this case. It consisted of 8 men and 10 women. 15 are white, 3 are black. They range in ages from 30 to 78, and they come from all walks of life. There's retirees, professionals, plant workers. There was a stay-at-home mom, members of the clergy, nurses, and teachers. And they were from all over Morgan County. They're a good representation of our county, and they were charged with a very tough task, and they rose to that occasion. They all took an oath. They took an oath to seek the truth and to do justice and to show no partiality or favor between the powerful and the weak, the rich and the poor, and that they would bring an indictment for any crime which they found committed based on the law and the evidence, and that they would do so without envy, hatred, malice, reward, or hope thereof. They took this oath to heart, and they abided by it, and they agreed that they would conduct their business without fear, affection, or reward. And again, they took this oath to heart, and they did what was right. Before the first word of testimony was uttered, before the first witness was called to the stand to testify, and before the first item of evidence was ever presented to them, the members of the grand jury and I paused for a word of prayer. In that prayer, we asked the Lord to bless us with his knowledge and with his wisdom, that he would give us discernment, and that he would guide us in the performance of all our duties and the tasks that we were called upon to address in these proceedings. We asked him that the outcome of our proceedings would be in accordance with his will, and folks, I have no doubt that he answered those prayers. During the course of the evidence and testimony, the members of the grand jury heard and considered either evidence and or testimony from no less than 15 witnesses. Now, all of you know that there were 4 officers at the scene when this incident occurred, and there was only 1 officer who fired any shots. As a result of the facts and evidence presented in this case, the grand jury unanimously returned an indictment against Mac Bailey Marquette, charging him with the crime of murder. Again, after having considered all of the facts and evidence in the case, the grand jury agreed unanimously that there were no violations with regards to the laws of the state of Alabama against any other officer. And I agree completely with the decision that this grand jury made. Now, I understand fully that there are some members of our community that think that there should have been more than one officer charged in this situation. There are also some who think that no one should have been charged in this situation. However, to anyone who disagrees with the decision of this grand jury, please understand that the members of this grand jury are the only people in the state of Alabama, with the exception of myself, who heard all the facts, who know all the truth, and were in a position to consider all of the evidence. As a result, they are the only ones fully equipped to apply all of this knowledge and all of this evidence to the laws of our state. That means that this group knows more than anyone else what the truth is surrounding the death of Mr. Perkins. And again, this is a group of highly intelligent citizens who have no reason, no desire, and no agenda that would cause them to favor any one person or any group in reaching their decisions. So, while there may be some who disagree with the decisions of this grand jury and the tasks that they had before them, I hope that they will at least respect that this group knows more about the facts and the evidence in this case, more so than anyone else, and they did what they knew was right under the circumstances. I have to say that this was not an easy thing to do. It wasn't easy for the grand jury, and it wasn't easy for me. No one wants to charge or indict an officer of the law. The grand jury's job was to determine whether or not there was sufficient evidence for this case to move forward with the prosecution. By returning this indictment, this grand jury has given me my marching orders. The job now falls to me and my office to prosecute this case and to seek justice. I am, by virtue of my office and the laws of the state of Alabama, the highest ranking law enforcement official in this county. So again, it's not easy for me to be in a position of prosecuting an officer, but in this circumstance, it's the right thing to do. I recently heard someone say, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it must always be done. And I agree with that. And that's what I intend to do in this case. I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can.
You said,
And I won't talk about the facts.
you said that your office will be prosecuting it.
Yes.
You work closely with the Decatur Police Department.
Yes.
Had you considered recusing yourself from the case?
I did not. The reason is this, and I had a couple of my my DA friends from across the state call me when this picked up some publicity, and they encouraged me to recuse from this case because of what you just said, Harry. That, you know, I do work closely and will continue to work closely with the Decatur Police Department. But they encouraged me to recuse because of that, and my response was, you know, after giving a lot of thought, I don't have any more of a conflict in this case than the Attorney General would, and that's who would have prosecuted it had I recused. And so I didn't have any more of a conflict than he did. And when I ran for office, I assured the public that I wouldn't shy away from the tough cases, and I'm going to be true to my word, and I'm not going to shy away from this case. It is a tough case because of the relationship, but I can't let that get in the way of justice. And the people of Morgan County elected me DA, and I'm going to serve them as their DA.
Sir, perhaps a difficult question,
Sure.
and I ask this with great respect to Mr. Perkins' family, but I think it's important to ask.
Sure.
Did Mr. Perkins have with him, or was he holding a gun when he was shot?
Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the facts of the case. This is not the appropriate time. The courtroom's the place I'm going to talk about the facts.
I respect that.
Can you discuss what a murder charge means? I know the statute requires a showing of intent.
Yeah.
Can you talk any detail about that aspect, how they arrived at murder as the charge?
Well, understand, I'm not allowed to be in the grand jury room when they deliberate. My job is to present the facts, and we took the better part of a day presenting all the facts to the grand jury. Then my job after that is to present them with the applicable law. And so what they concentrated on, I don't know. I'm not allowed to ask.
Can you describe the applicable law here, what the murder charge means in
Yeah,
Alabama?
it's the unjustifiable, causing the unjustifiable death of another person intentionally.
Can you break down the clear difference in what led to the indictment of one of these officers, but not the others? What did this grand jury see that separated these from this one?
There again, I cannot, I'm not going to talk about the facts of the case, and I cannot address what the grand jury thought in their deliberations. I can tell you what, I can talk about felony murder, and so that is not what Mr. Marquette is charged with. He's charged with murder. The difference between murder and felony murder is if you've got a group of people, I'll just put it in a hypothetical. Let's say hypothetically you've got a group of 3 people who decide that they're going to go commit a robbery, and one of them is armed with a pistol. And so they make their way to their victim, and the one that's armed with the pistol in the course of the robbery shoots the victim and kills him. Of course, that person has committed capital murder. Arguably, the others have too, but the more generic charge in that would be felony murder. Even though they didn't pull the trigger, then they could be charged with felony murder. For that to happen, you've got to have another felony to have been committed, all right? And so there was no evidence that another felony was being committed when Mr. Perkins was shot.
Will we see the body camera footage from the shooting?
No, sir.
And the family see the body camera footage?
I have made that available to the family, and we've discussed it, and I will allow them to see it if they choose to, okay? Guys, I'm not playing hardball with the video. I'm really not. This is my stance on the video and releasing it publicly. You all have seen the door cam footage that was appeared on social media. And as a result of posting the door cam footage, you had untruths, half-truths, speculations, innuendos, rumors, and it just goes on and on. And all those were shared. And so that evidence, while it is still good evidence, is tainted with opinions. And it also taints a jury pool, because if a jury has seen evidence outside the courtroom that is eventually going to come in the courtroom, then we have to make sure that they can set whatever they've heard or thought about that evidence aside, and some of them can't. And so if I released the body cam footage, I would be contributing to that, and I'm not going to do that. My job is to seek justice and do it the best that I can. And the best way that I can seek justice is to make sure that everybody gets a fair trial, and that that can only happen if we've got the largest jury pool in Morgan County that we can have. So I'm not going to release the body cam footage publicly.
Were all of the officers wearing body cam, or some of them other than just one? Did you have several vantage points of video to come to these conclusions?
I'm not going to address the evidence.
Can the officers face other charges related to this case?
I have spoken with federal authorities, and there's a possibility there, but I'm not going to speak for the federal authorities. That's going to be up to them.
But they are not going to face any lesser than murder charges right
No.
now indicated,
No.
or more detail.
No. Not unless, there was some other evidence come up that I wasn't aware of. I mean, it's always open. There's no statute of limitations. But as I said, Agent King did a very thorough job in this investigation. And so I can't imagine that there being any other evidence that we're not aware of.
What's next? How long until you think this might go before a jury?
The next step, of course, Mr. Marquette will be arraigned, and that's where he's formally informed of the charge against him, and he enters his formal plea. From then, I assume that there will be motions and hearings on various matters, but then ultimately it will be set for trial. I'm not in charge of the trial schedule, so I can't comment on how quickly it will get to trial, but I'm assuming it would receive priority.
I may ask what Mr. Marquette's status is right now. Has he been arrested? Has he been booked?
Yeah,
Is he
I
in
could-
jail or out on bond?
I could not be talking to you if he had not been arrested.
Will you be seeking a no bond for Marquette? Do you expect him to be out on bond?
Now, he's got a bond, and I have heard, but don't take this as the gospel, I've heard that he is bonded out.
It says he's bonded out for $30,000. So if that's the case, is he just at home now waiting for his arraignment?
I have no idea where he is. I don't know.
Okay.
Has he been booked?
I'm sorry.
He has been booked?
It's my understanding, yes, yeah. I wouldn't be talking to you if you hadn't been arrested.
Is Morgan County the appropriate venue, given the publicity this has already had?
That is up to the defense to file that motion. The state doesn't have the right to file a motion for a change of venue, but the defense does. And so we will address that issue if and when it's filed. For all I know, the defense may want to try it here. I don't know.
Do you have any opinion on what kind of implications this case may have, no matter the direction it goes?
Flesh it out for me.
The implications as far as what an officer can or can't do when they fire their gun, or what kind of standard they could be held to when they fire their gun?
Well, the standards don't change, okay? The standards are in place, and that will probably be an issue at trial. I will say this. I've seen a trend here in the city of Decatur where they open up positions for police officers, and they get very few applicants. Another trend is they get applicants in, and they turn out to be really good officers. They're here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then they transfer to another law enforcement agency, typically nearby, for higher pay. So what I would hope, and this has nothing to do with this criminal case, but you're talking about trends and implications, what I would hope that would happen is that the city of Decatur would increase the pay for their officers to keep good quality officers and to train the younger officers to make sure that they know how to act and react in certain situations.
Was what the grand jury made its decision on based solely on the evidence in this particular situation, this particular shooting of Mr. Perkins? Or is there any pattern of behavior that it also might have looked at during his service as an officer that helped come to this conclusion?
No, it was strictly the evidence based on what happened at Mr. Perkins' residence.
Will there be any kind of review of Marquette's past cases?
Not by this office. I can't imagine how that would be relevant in what happened on this particular occasion.
Mayor Bowling fired Marquette. Marquette appealed that. How does this now affect his appeal hearing for that?
I don't think that it does at all. They're two separate legal issues. Anybody else? All right, guys. I appreciate y'all being here, and we're already getting prepared to move this case forward. Thank you.